Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Talking Shit About with me, Elizabeth. The first Friday of each month, I bring somebody on to talk about something they love, something they hate, and hopefully by the end we've learned a little something, maybe not. This episode has two returning guests, Steve, aka Introvoid, and Thumbs, aka Zach Johnson. And I'm really grateful that Steve was down at the last minute to bring Zach in because I think they have a lot of good back and forth. And since I'm not a comic book nerd, I have a few in my collection, but I thought that some more nuanced perspectives would be a great thing for y'all to listen to. And I had such a good time with this interview, so I hope you enjoy. And let's go ahead and talk some shit. Everybody, welcome to episode 22 of Talking Shit About, the MCU, Electric Boogaloo, aka the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I wrote that down. I wanted to make sure I said that.
I use Electric Boogaloo all the time. I'm very proud.
I don't. It was like the first time I ever used it, so it was like really exciting. I'm here with returning guests, two for the first time. It's very exciting.
Hey.
Not two new guests for the first time. Two guests for the first time, two returning guests.
We're both returning.
Yes. Oh, good, Marty. Thank you for the cardboard. We were just talking about how I gave them melatonin treats. They may have accidentally been double dosed. Either way, hopefully they'll mellow out. So I'm here with Zach Thumbs Johnson, who is here on episode 3, talking about The Punisher.
God, that was way back when.
Yeah, episode 3. That was over a year ago. It's crazy. I listened to it recently. I listened to all the episodes recently.
Oh yeah, no, I try to re-listen to all of my stuff at least every once in a while.
Yeah. And then I'm also here with Steve Barnes, aka Introvoid, who was on episode 7. That's right? You made a face.
No, that's a good face. Introvoid is me. Yeah, plug it away.
Oh, I just want to make sure I didn't get your name wrong because I thought I couldn't think of it yesterday. And then I thought of it, and then I wasn't sure if I was wrong. I'm like functioning on cigarettes and coffee today, just so you guys know.
So not much has
combination.
Yes, but we talked about sports on that episode.
Who. That's right.
Fuck them.
Yes.
Yes. So Zach, real quick, why don't you tell us about yourself and your projects?
Oh God, so I'm always amused coming onto this podcast because this is Talking Shit About, and one of my podcasts, General Nerdery, literally describes itself as a podcast about liking things, which is just, I mean, the name is what it is. It is General Nerdery. We talk about anything ranging from, we've done episodes on Ted Lasso or Red Dwarf or the novel World War Z, or we're about to start a deep dive into Grant Morrison's Justice League of America run. So it's just whatever nerdy stuff entertains us at the time. I also do a podcast called Noob Island, where we have been teaching. The idea is it is a place where you can learn about comic book characters without having to deal with, as Tyler put it, sweaty tryhards and neckbeards.
Okay.
If you don't know what you're talking about, but you think Doctor Strange is interesting, sweet, we have an episode for you. And we've been deep diving through Marvel Magic stuff. So we just went through like 6 episodes of different Marvel vampire characters. Turns out Dracula is a giant himbo. It's amazing. And then finally, there is Word Balloons, which is where we answer all of your nerdy questions. So it has ranged anywhere from is Wolverine circumcised to who is the least cop-like superhero to does Palpatine fuck. They're not all sex related, but there's definitely been a lot of sex related.
Did Tuvok deserve to die?
Did Tuvok? We did that one. We did.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I did.
We did one season that was, because it's like 10 episodes a season, that was just Star Trek and Star Wars episodes. And I think half of the questions from that season came straight from Beth. And then I do a bunch of illustration nerdy stuff, you can find it on Thumbs Up Artist on Instagram or Thumbs Up the Art of Zach Johnson on Facebook.
Very nice. And Steve.
Heck yeah. That's me. I might be your nemesis by the end of this podcast there, Zach, because do I address you as Zach, by the way?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. When it comes to Marvel stuff, that's why we're doing this. I'm getting ready to talk some shit about Marvel. And in the way of talking shit, I mean that like in a negative connotation, because
Sure.
I sometimes take things like at face value. I'm very gullible. And so like, Elizabeth has this podcast talking shit, but then she talks about some really serious stuff with some people. And then she did the whole Ruby Ridge thing. And there wasn't a lot of talking shit. It was a lot of serious stuff. And I was like, am I taking this
It's a little
wrong?
hard to talk shit on Ruby Ridge, in fairness.
Right. I was like, am I
We're talking
taking
shit about the federal government is really
That's
what
fair.
it was.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. So
And white supremacy as well.
Yeah. So I came in here and talked a bunch of shit about sports, but then I was like, did I have the spirit of this wrong? And I like listened to some of your older episodes and I was like, no, but then you asked me back to talk shit about Marvel. I'm happy to do so. But I guess I should say what I do too. I do a music under the band Introvoid, available everywhere music is. It's mostly metal and kind of with a stoner kind of doom edge to it. And there's some hip hop I do in there too with my friend Marshland Monster. And we also do a podcast together called Sweet Shot of Time, where we do TV recaps of 3 specific shows: The Wheel of Time, the Netflix series 1899, which was just canceled and we cried about it, and the Netflix series Dark, which we're getting ready to do that in a couple of weeks with my friend Lindsay Dunn, who is a TV and film critic. And she has already done written recaps of Dark, like the whole thing. So we're going to go off of her written recaps and podcast and riff about it and watch Dark for the next, 3 months or so. So those are my 2 main things: Sweet Shot of Time and Introvoid.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to talk shit about even things I love. I just
same.
Especially with general nerdery, one of our things was, I am a white bearded man. I'm a white bearded bald man. I look like everyone I hate online, and will happily make fun of them. But like, it's so easy to find like, here's why this is bad and you should hate it, that even when we're watching something that I think is bad, the Justice League Snyder Cut, Morbius, there have been a couple of things, I do try to find stuff that I liked in them, just because I find it exhausting to be mad at all times, and it's really easy to do these days.
I do a positive based podcast.
Exactly.
The Wheel of Time is kind of I don't want to say it's like a hot button show or anything like that, but it has a lot of negativity around it. So I like to be completely positive with it and point out the positivity. I don't lie about the things I don't like about it, but I don't harp on them either.
No, exactly. That's it.
And I don't normally do it either, but like I said before, Elizabeth gives me this wonderful platform to talk shit that I normally wouldn't do. So yeah.
And I have some opinions on some of the movies that we're about to talk about. So
yeah.
Although in similar route, I did when Elizabeth asked me to be on this one, I was like, well, I can, and any excuse to hang out with Elizabeth, always, every time. But I'm not sure if I'm the right person for this, because for the most part, I am aggressively meh about the Marvel movies. Like, I've seen more than a rational person probably should, but like a lot of them I've missed of the last few years at least, and I tend to enjoy them. I just don't tend to give much of a crap about them either, with a few exceptions. Oh, now it's time for my cat to be loud.
Where are you coming at from the Marvel's perspective, Elizabeth?
I really enjoyed them. I went to, when the first Avengers movie came out, this was in Northern Virginia, they did a movie marathon, and it was all of the Avenger movies, or like the superhero movies. So phase 1, which we'll list all of them. And then at midnight, it was the Avengers release. And it was this huge event, and they had like, everyone was dressed up, and it was just like this super fun culture. And like, I have kind of a crush on Edward Norton, even though he's not usually my type, but just like, I don't know.
So you must have been pissed. That's the one they fired him from.
Oh, they fired him?
Edward, it's unclear whether they chose not to go forward with him, and it sounds like it was
Hmm.
mostly a mutual decision. But like, you know
Yeah.
how if you've ever read a fucking Hollywood press release,
Mm-hmm.
there's
I
a
was going to
whole
say,
lot of double speak to read in that.
yeah, American History X, he was notoriously really difficult to work with on set just because
Mm-hmm.
he took his craft very seriously. So I think I think that's the whole gist of it. He's a bit too serious to work with sometimes. I love him
Mm-hmm.
though. But
Feelings
what was
going
he in
down a little
Marvel?
bit.
What was
Oh,
he
he
in
was the
Marvel?
Hulk. He was in the Incredible Hulk.
Hmm.
Okay, all right. I
It
saw a version of the
was
Hulk that wasn't
not a
him.
great movie, but it was a he did fine.
It was better than the other one. The one with Liv
Oh
Tyler, I think
yeah,
is probably the one you
no,
saw.
no,
What
that's the
was
same
that?
one. It's the Ang Lee
Oh,
Hulk one that came out in the early 2000s. That's
oh.
That's the one I
unwatchable
saw.
garbage.
That's the one I saw,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, and real quick before we get started, consider this the blanket spoiler warning. I'm not get we're not going to worry about spoilers. The movies have all been out for long enough.
Hmm.
I feel like we haven't seen probably the most recent one, so it's probably not even a problem. Zach, do you want to go into the history sort of the MCU before we just list off all the
Yeah, we
names?
can. You and I were talking a little bit about where we wanted to start with Marvel movies. Before I realized entirely, we were mostly just talking about the MCU, the modern stuff. So Marvel movies actually predate Marvel, which is kind of a wild thing to think about. But the first movie using what we would think of as a Marvel character came out in 1944, and it starred, I think 1944, mid 40s, starring Captain America. But back then, that was before Marvel was. It would have been called Timely back then, which is a terrible name, but they had it for like 15 years.
Okay.
Um, Throughout, especially in the 60s and 70s, there were various attempts at Marvel movies. They generally ended up being largely forgotten, made for TV movies. A couple of Incredible Hulk spin-offs, because there was that on running TV series in the 70s, a made-for-TV movie of Spider-Man, of Doctor Strange, a
Hmm.
couple of Captain America ones where he kind of looks like Evil Knievel.
These are where I
Uh,
hopped in, by the way. These are the Marvel movies that I remember and that I grew up with that you're naming
uh,
right here.
this kind of thing went on until the 90s, where there was even a Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, which I know I've
Hmm.
watched, but I am not going to go check it again. Like, let's be really honest here. The most interesting thing of this area is Elizabeth, have you ever heard of the character Dazzler?
Is that the roller skater?
She does have roller skates at one point, I think. So, yes.
Yeah.
So, real quick, the
Okay.
character Dazzler these days is known as kind of a weird disco X-Man. But what was going on was a disco company whose name I forgot to look up made a deal with Marvel of like, you're going to create this comic book character. We're going to make a movie of her using a major disco star whose name I've also forgotten, but like six disco stars were considered. And it'll be this huge cross platform thing. We'll release disco albums under Dazzler, yada, yada, yada. It's going to be really cool. And then, like 6 months after they set up this deal, disco collapsed.
That
Because
quick, huh?
disco collapsed so fast. Like, it's hard to kind of understand, but it went from like the biggest thing in the world to no one watched it, listen to disco. And then they
Why?
introduced Dazzler anyways, because they're like, well, we've already put all this time and money into this character.
Sure.
Might as well get a comic series out of her. And she's weirdly cool for a character that was based off a disco team up. And then really what we think of as modern movies kind of starts in 1998. They released Blade, starring Wesley Snipes, which, having watched it in the last couple months, holds up way better than I expected it to. It's not perfect. It's a definite like late 90s, just before the Matrix came out action movie, but it was a lot of fun to watch actually. And like the other two, because I watched all three, Blade 2 didn't hold up nearly as well as I expected, and Blade Trinity has
Did not.
always been garbage, so I'm not surprised by that at all. But what Blade did was it took comics seriously in a way that had never really been done before. I mean, the superhero movies coming out in the 90s is stuff like Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, which we can argue about one way or the other, but are like high camp nightmares one way or the other. Like they're
Batman Forever absolutely is. And something Blade had going for it too was Chris Christopherson. Wasn't that he wasn't he didn't he play
yeah,
like
as
a
Whistler, he was so
old
fucking
wise
cool.
character?
Hmm.
That gave a lot of legitimacy because I was of age when that movie came out too. If it came out in 98, that would have made me 26 at the time. And
I was
that
10. I remember seeing the ads in the back of the comic book. I thought Blade was
yeah.
the coolest fucking thing that had ever existed. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and that movie gave it some legitimacy. I mean, they did transfer it pretty well. I thought that the first Batman wasn't terrible through the lens of time. It absolutely was terrible. Um, but
but
like you
Jack
said, Batman
Nicholson's having
Forever was
fun,
pretty
so
bad.
see, Batman Forever is an interesting one for me because I'm aware that it's an objectively terrible movie, but it is also one of the most influential things in my life
Okay,
because it came out in 1995. I was 8. I'm 7, 8 years old,
right.
and I didn't follow superheroes or comic books. And then I watched my nanny rented Batman Forever and put it on, and literally I was just like, "What is this?" And for a movie for a 7 year old, it's perfect. It did everything it was supposed to do. Watching as an adult, it's still fun, but it is. If we're going to talk about nonsense movies, it is one of the most nonsense things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but because Blade showed this could happen, especially with a property like fucking Blade that no one had ever heard of, they went, "Oh, we can actually do this," kind of. And that's where we got the rush of early 2000s, mostly forgettable superhero movies. We got Spider-Man, we got X-Men.
These are not forgettable for me because this was a performative time in my life where I was taking my little kid, my 4 or 5 year old kid, to go see these movies.
When
So that
I
was.
say when I say forgettable, I do not mean Spider-Man 1 and 2 or X-Men 1 and 2. I
Mhm.
mean Elektra, I mean Daredevil, I mean the fucking Ang Lee Hulk,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
either of the
Yeah.
Punisher movies.
Right.
But like I understand because I was just hitting the age where I could start to go to the movie theater on my own, and we had a buck 50 theater, so it was not hard even for me, 14 years old, and obviously not Boyd because 14, to scrounge up enough quarters to go see the whatever forgettable movie of the time. Um, but it was still not being taken seriously.
Right.
Uh, and part of the weird thing of this era was there was no organized plan to making these movies, partially because no one took them seriously, and partially because a bunch of different companies owned different Marvel products. Because, and I meant to bring this up earlier, but I kind of forgot it, in the early 90s, there was known as the speculators boom, where suddenly people were buying comic books at outrageous amounts in a very Beanie Babies fashion, because everyone was certain that these were going to pay for your kid's college in 20 years. Because people were selling, early like Spider-Man 1 or Detective Comics 1 or Detective Comics whatever number Batman first appears in. I don't remember off the top of my head.
14.
Thank you. Um, and
Right.
they're selling for millions of dollars. So everyone was like, "Oh my god." And so there was a massive speculator boom that, as someone who grew up in the 90s, I have a lot of affection for 90s comic books, but there was a lot of garbage that came out. And literally, the oversaturation of the market led to, in 1998, Marvel declaring bankruptcy. And part of the way that they survived to become what they were today is they were selling off the movie rights to their properties, just desperately trying to stay afloat. And people were getting them for pretty cheap because it's the mid 90s. Who the fuck cares about superhero movies? So Sony got the Spider-Man stuff. Fox got Daredevil, Fantastic Four, and um, X-Men, and no one wanted the Avengers stuff because, as weird as it is to think about now, all the big name Avengers, Iron Man, Cap, Hulk, yada yada yada, were all kind of considered B-list characters compared to Spider-Man or the X-Men, who were
Hmm.
the powerhouses by far. Until early 2008, which kind of brings us to where we are, because this is a very long-winded introduction, sorry, when they introduce Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. actually being published through some Marvel Studios. I don't know what the deal was on that because it's before Disney bought Marvel,
Right.
but I think it was still just literally called Marvel
Marvel
Entertainment
Stu
Studios.
Yeah, Marvel Studios is what I remember it being. They had that really
And
flashy kind of like fast animation at the beginning of
yeah,
each of those movies. I don't think they do that anymore, but I like those
um,
little the pages wisping by.
I feel like
yeah,
they
that
do
was
this kind of
definitely a
like
thing.
cheesy like freeze frame thing, at least.
Yeah, no, it was much better when they would, partially because being the giant fucking nerd I am, I was like, oh, the George Perez cover right there. Ooh, that's Sal Buscema's art. Like, that
Right.
just makes me happy. And no one expected this movie to take off. I was actively wanting it to fail because I disliked Iron Man because he was a giant fucking fascist in the Civil War crossover that I had read the year before. And then Robert Downey Jr. pretty much just played himself because the Iron Man we now know, thanks to Robert Downey Jr., is funny, and Iron Man had never been sarcastic and funny in the comics until, oh my god, this movie sold how many millions of dollars worth of movies or worth of tickets.
Oh, he killed it. He killed it
Oh
absolutely. I mean, I mean that movie rode on him. I mean Iron Man was kind of a cool property. It was a cool story, but I mean, he sold that movie. I mean, he made it, I thought.
yeah, because it made him fun as opposed to making him Howard
Right.
Hughes, and Howard Hughes doesn't sell as well in 1995 as it did in 1967 before we found out that he was peeing in jars and not cutting his nails.
Yeah. I've grown up
Um,
always loving superheroes and all that kind of not when I was a kid, of course. Iron
mhm.
Man it was never a guy I really considered. Never. And that's why I stress that I think Robert Downey Jr. did a lot for that.
Oh
Because for
yeah,
me, like Iron Man was never cool. He was never like a character I was really excited to see show up in any comic book or like when he showed up on the X-Men, cartoon. I was never like, oh, cool, it's Iron Man. It was kind of Iron Man.
yeah,
Just
pretty similar. He always fell under a similar thing for me of like I would see him and I'd be like, yeah, power armor, and then I would go pay attention to Boba Fett or
right.
Darth Vader or any of the other million people with armor that shoots lasers out of their hands. That's a product of the second half of the 20th century that
Yeah,
I cared about more. And I mean, as much as I love Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, I mean that has remained true to this day. I will follow Iron Man even if it's a really like popular run in comics right now for 5, 10 issues and be like, hell yeah, this is great, and then just leave out of nowhere. Don't even just he. It doesn't hold my attention. So it is kind of amazing that Iron Man was able to do that to the nation. It is interesting. I watched that movie. I haven't. I've seen it once in the last like decade probably, but I watched it a couple of years ago after watching the most recent Avengers movies, which I put off watching for a long time. The pacing of that movie is so wildly different than what I think of Marvel movies now. Just one of those things to make me sound old is movies are too fast these days. And I mean, just the shots, the speed that they go at is so different. They don't fast cam the fights anymore, or they don't fast cam the fights in those old ones. I think also part of the reason why Iron Man worked is John Favreau made it. And John Favreau, I mean, these
sure,
days he's
sure,
best
sure.
known for like Mandalorian, which is great. I fucking love Mandalorian. I'm probably
Yeah,
going to watch it when I'm done recording this just because this new episode was cool and I want to see it again. But like, even beyond that, John Favreau is just going to make a reliably decent movie in pretty much
that's
anything I've
right.
ever seen him do.
He's got
Like,
integrity. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Even the ones I don't like that much. I don't really care for Elf, but I can recognize it was well done.
Yeah, he pays attention to stuff like
Mm-hmm.
cinematography and pacing, comedic pacing that makes sense. Like you're saying about the frenetic pacing of the more modern MCU movies, what we know as now. The jokes are really like set to you on like a platter. They're not good jokes. It's not good pacing. It's a very predictable pacing, and the storyline always follows the same beats and it gets to the same build up to the same climactic ending. And I just saw that formula over and over again done in many ways, but like faster and faster, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
um
I will argue there are exceptions to that case. There are some of them
sure,
that I think
sure.
hold up fucking great. But yeah, no, for the most part, if I'm watching a Marvel movie, there's a good chance that I'm going to be like, this is fine. I will enjoy myself for the next 2 hours, but I'm not going to, like, okay, let's use Black Widow movie. One of the more recent ones I watched. I enjoyed it. I had a fun time watching it. It should have been made 10 years earlier, but whatever. But I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about Black Widow after I watched it. I was like, that
Yep,
was fun.
that's it.
Okay.
Yep. I totally hear you. That's what I don't like about a lot of superhero Marvel movies too, is that it doesn't like I watched Tenet. That's the most recent movie I've watched. It was Tenet, which blew my mind. I had to watch it a couple of times.
Is that the World War One one?
No, it's not. That's what I thought too, going into it as well. I don't know what movie we're thinking of collectively, but we're both thinking of the wrong movie.
Okay.
This is done by the same guy who did Inception and
Hmm.
um,
The Nolan.
Nolan. That's Christopher Nolan. Did a superhero movie. Look at that.
Did three of them.
Three of them. I know about Batman, but
Uh,
Tenet is a
yeah,
movie that has a lot of weird things happening, a lot of seeds. It begs to be rewatched because so many things happen that are just so subtle. And I just don't see that in a Marvel style superhero movie a whole lot.
probably the one I've rewatched the most is not actually part of the MCU, and it's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse,
That
the
is a big
animated one with
exception to
Miles
the rule.
Morales.
That I have that one here with a bunch of X's by it because that's my big exception to the rule. That was a fantastic movie,
So
I
and
mean,
good.
I could go back and watch it like right
I
now.
my wife and I watched it on our wedding day because we had done all the fun wedding stuff, and we were like, all
Okay,
right,
it's a
we
fun
just want
movie.
to
You're
chill on
right.
we want to chill on the couch now. What do we want to do? And she goes, "You want to watch Spider Verse?" I'm like, "God, yes, I do. God, I'm so glad I married you." Um, and she's not even into. I mean, she'll watch superhero stuff with me, but it's not like her thing. Beth, you had a list of the movies. Do we want to hit some of those,
Yeah,
or
let's do it. I'm just going to read off the 6 phases because there's
uh,
phases.
the phases were kind of set up for a storytelling concept of like, okay, it was usually like, here's an Avengers movie, here's some phases, here's a whatever, like we're setting up for this next big thing to happen. It's just an organizational thing as opposed to like wildly important.
Gotcha. Okay. So we have Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Marty, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, The Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor Dark World, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, which is probably the worst, I think,
I don't know.
and
Thor: The
Ant
Dark
Man.
World is real bad.
I just don't remember that one, to be
That's
honest.
fair. I actively dislike Age of Ultron. Thor: Dark World, I actively think I fell asleep to. So I guess it depends on what your definition of bad is.
Yeah.
Uh, I really like Christopher Eccleston, the guy they hired to play the villain in Thor: The Dark World, and they put so much makeup on him that you can't actually tell it's him. So I've held a bit of a grudge since.
All right, we're on phase 3. Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Spider Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, Spider Man Far From Home. The Multiverse Saga, Phase 4, Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther Wakanda Forever.
Panther.
Okay, phase 5, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania,
That one
Guardians
just
of...
came out like 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, it did. And then these next ones have not come out yet. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Marvels, Captain America, New World Order, Thunderbolts, Blade, Deadpool 3, Fantastic Four, Avengers The Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars. I think it's really interesting that Deadpools 1 and 2 are not in here, but Deadpool
Uh,
3 is.
that Deadpool 1 and 2 came out before Fox was bought out by Disney. So there's a kind of weird thing they've been doing, partially because it'll sell and make people watch old movies and let them bring in other actors, but the multiverse lets them take characters from movies that weren't part of the standard MCU before. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, both of the Spider-Man from the most recent Spider-Man movie, Tobey Maguire and British guy who's Andrew Garfield, lets them bring in, and people like, oh, I liked that movie. Sure, I'll watch this one again. It does make it confusing because I think there's something to be said for just a clean reboot without having to explain everything. Okay, here's a new Spider-Man. We don't need to worry about those old ones. Here's a new Deadpool. We don't need to worry about those old ones or whatever. But especially now that Disney has been buying back all the various properties, they have Daredevil again, they have the X-Men, and they've been figuring out how they're going to introduce those. They seem to be feeling this need to be like, oh, we're going to explain why we used to have different X-Men and now we have this one. While there's something to be said, I think, for the Batman way of doing it, of like, okay, yeah, we had the Michael Keaton movies, whatever, they're done. Don't even think about them. Now we're gonna do Christian Bale or fucking whoever. It does kind of come up with a problem as now that it was fun in those first however many up through Avengers to be like, oh, they're all interconnected. The Avengers felt like a huge fucking thing. You mentioned seeing all of them because oh, here was that bit from Captain America: The First Avenger I saw. I remember that. Like here was this build up, and then oh my god, it's here. We're getting this. But now we're 20 fucking movies in, and that's great. But trying to keep up that momentum doesn't work anymore because I own literally thousands of comic book collections, like graphic novels, trade collections, whatever you want. You know, like 6 issues in one, as opposed to like single monthly issues. I run 3 podcasts about nerd shit, and I can't keep up with this anymore.
Yeah, if you had told me, I was born in 1972. And so if you had told me as like a 14-year-old kid that like, in your lifetime they're going to make they're going to make Ant-Man movies. They're going to make movies about friggin' Black Widow, for example. I would not have believed you at all because all I had seen at that point was, the Incredible Hulk, David Banner on TV. I loved it. Spider-Man on PBS, also loved it. Um,
I
and then
forgot that was on PBS.
yeah, and like it wasn't like even remotely mainstream. It was about as mainstream as Tom and Jerry is. It was like it was just a thing. And I guess I'm thinking maybe sophomore, junior years when they started the X-Men cartoons on Fox Kids. And that was a really big deal that they were doing this, that they had like an actual cool property and they were doing cool things with the stories and they were treating the characters correctly and they had good voice actors for them. It was just amazing that we had that at that time. So I couldn't even fathom like the first X-Men movie when it came out and like how amazing that was for me. And like my kid too, because I have a little kid at this point too. My son is now 27. I'm 50. That's our ages. And so like all these movies that we're talking about, it just blows my mind that they made all these and they made them interconnected. So it's in my mind, it's like forcing people to like, if you're a collector dude, if you're a comic book dude, then we know that you're a completist. We know you got to watch all this shit. So they throw as many movies as they can into the universe to make sure they know they're going to sell them. They know it's going to sell. And I was into underground comics as well, like Fantagraphic stuff in the 90s and like Robert Crumb stuff. And they're even making movies about that stuff now. Like Dan Klaus has like two movie properties that he's put out. It's just unimaginable to me.
They just
Like,
put out a TV series of the Fabulous Freak Brothers.
right. Yeah. So like it's all fair game now. And I just think I just think the Marvel just went a wrong direction. Like with my TV and movie habits, I like fiction, I like fantasy and sci-fi. And I accept, I mean, it's taken me a long time because I, I guess at some point I've been like a snarky person and I don't like stuff that's like mainstream. You know what I mean? So I kind of turned my nose up at it. So as I guess as these Marvel movies and Marvel has gotten more mainstream, maybe I've gotten more cynical, I suppose. But I'm forgiving with like my fiction that I like. If like something happens in like a TV show and like, oh, that person wouldn't leave the door open like that. That's not what a person would do. I kind of forgive that kind of shit. Like I used to like harp on that kind of thing. Why would they leave the bowl right there? That's not where you would leave the bowl. I mean, they do these kind of things because it makes sense in the scene. And I know that it's a make believe. But for whatever reason, the make believe genre of the superhero completely lost me like maybe a decade and a half ago, where it's just not the genre for me and I cannot forgive it and I can't see past like my I guess you call it like your believability, like the amount of believability that you'll give something.
The oh god, what's the fucking term for it?
There's a
The
good term for it. We know it.
Suspension of belief?
Right.
suspension of disbelief. That's the one. Yeah. No,
Disbelief.
and
Between the three of us, we got it.
Yeah,
there's
it took
a
three nerds.
I you see, and I'm a little more forgiving. As I said, like there are of those movies you mentioned, there are several ones that I really loved. I thought I enjoyed Thor Ragnarok so much. I've enjoyed most of the Captain America movies. I've loved the Guardian movies. I think James Gunn is fucking great at his job. And that's all cool. And I will watch those weird stuff. I mean, I went and saw Shang-Chi in theaters because I love B and C list here Marvel characters, DC, any kind of superhero character. But don't make me watch fucking Ant-Man to know what's going on. And there's nothing wrong with Ant-Man. I just don't give a fuck about Ant-Man, and I've never been able to. I have actively tried over
He's
the
on your shit list.
years.
He's basically the same character as fucking Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy. Star Lord.
Star-Lord. And he
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Like, but part of that was Guardians, one, I mean, especially that first Guardians movie, which holds up really well, especially if you like stuff like Star Wars. It is a fun science fiction romp that came out of fucking nowhere that made us all laugh. And I was looking forward to it because I had read the Guardians comics that it was extremely loosely based off of.
Right.
But most people are coming up to me being like, Zach, are you fucking serious? They're giving us a tree and a raccoon. And I was like, just trust me. But because it worked so well, it changed all the other movies going forward. Because Robert Downey Jr. was funny and snarky, suddenly it
Mhm.
became a lot more. We need more snarky and funny characters. And then
Yeah.
because it worked with Guardians, and suddenly using old
The
uh,
quips.
using the quips, and I was going to say using the classic rock soundtracks, and suddenly every fucking movie under the sun has those classic rock soundtracks. Does it
Yes.
work for me because I'm extremely suggestible and I was raised on a parent who worked at a classic rock station? Yes, it does. That doesn't make me less annoyed that I'm aware of how they're manipulating me.
Right. That bothers me to no end sometimes too. When I realize I'm being manipulated, but I'm like, this song is just perfect for this moment, so I'll forgive it. It works.
That's how I felt about that Pixar dinosaur movie. Um, I don't even remember what it's called because, like,
Dinosaur Pixar movie.
I have no idea. I don't know if I've seen that
yeah, it
one.
was really forgettable. Other than I
Can't think of it either.
remember a certain point where I was like
Wait, didn't they just
crying.
make one called Dinosaurs really early on?
No, not that one. And that one I think was DreamWorks. I haven't watched that in so long, but I really want to
Also
rewatch it.
forgettable.
Oh no, that shit was so good. Um, there was a pretty forgettable, I guess, Disney movie about this like kid who's lost and like befriends like a dinosaur who's lost. But there's this one point where I found myself kind of crying, and I was like, I knew this was gonna happen in the plot, and I'm like not really that sad, but I'm just very susceptible to crying in movies. And
Right.
so I just knew at that moment I was like thinking back to like Finding Nemo, thinking back to Up, and just going through that was just like trying to invoke as much sadness as possible. I don't know. It just like it seemed like overkill to me.
For me,
Doctor
it's
Who. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say for me, those are like it's affecting to me too. And I think it's manipulative. Like they use like the perfect lighting, the perfect song, like the perfect like room tone to evoke that emotion. And it's almost like sometimes it irritates me to no end because it's like cheating in a way that like playing like a really easy like three chord song is like super simple, but everybody loves it because they can tap their toes to it and it's real simple and easy and it gets right to the point. So like yes, that's really predominant like in Disney and Marvel movies, those moments like that where somebody is dying or somebody is sad about somebody leaving or something that I can just hear that music in the background right now like Making us
Um,
all tear up.
as a quick side note for a moment, this is the most hipster conversation I've had in a long time. I liked this before it was cool, but I mean, there is a thing. On one hand, I want to make the argument of like, well, you know what? The reason they do these is because they are moves that work. Wally
Yeah,
Wood,
yeah.
who is a very famous comic creator, if you are a nerd like me, but someone you've never heard of, if you are a normal person like Elizabeth here, um, has a list that he called the 22 comic panels that always work. And the idea is these are comic panels you can fall back on if you need to
Mm-hmm.
get from point A to point C and you're just stuck on point B. One of these will probably fit for what you're trying to do.
Heck
And
yeah.
like you could almost make the argument that those are like, well, those are just pulling the emotions, or those are just like, but the reason they exist is because they work. But there is something I think to be said for, it's all well and great to play the emotional manipulation card if it works, but you still have to kind of earn that moment
Yeah.
or
Right.
it feels cheap. There is
Right.
not MCU, but I'm a Doctor Who fan, but the thing about Doctor Who is even if you like it, there are some episodes that are just absolute dog shit. Like there's no getting out of it. But there's one episode that is one of the worst episodes I've ever seen, but it also makes me cry every single time because they are just masterfully playing the emotional manipulation card on me, even though anytime I stop to think about a single thing happening in that episode, I'm like, well, this is just, it doesn't make sense. And I don't think the Marvel movies are as blatant with it as, the Angels Take Manhattan, but it is, especially in the most recent Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, there were several moments of like, here's a big emotional bit that was not earned up to that point, particularly with the Vision and the Scarlet Witch, who are characters that I really enjoy and I wanted more time with them. But because we didn't get there more time with them, there were points where I was like, I'm supposed to be sad. Like everything that the way that this is lit, that is doing this, I should be sad, and I kind of am because I have the pre-existing.
Right.
I because I read the Kurt Busiek George Perez Avengers run in the 1990s, I have feelings on this. But if I hadn't seen these, why would I give a shit about what's happening right now?
That was the first example that I thought of when you brought that up. And yeah, as somebody who hasn't read it, like, why should I give a shit right now?
And credit to it,
Exactly.
I don't know if you watched WandaVision. I thought WandaVision did a lot to actually make me care. I actually think WandaVision is an extremely well put together and interesting TV series, but it's really difficult to make me sad after the fact.
Sure. Yeah. I gave it a shot. I tried WandaVision. It also wasn't for me. I think I was already too far gone um by that point. I think I might have seen the least amount of Marvel movies of all of us, surprisingly enough. I think maybe I've read a lot more X-Men comics because I was reading those a lot when I was a kid, like all the different that I guess that's something I want to bring up too, Elizabeth, is like the Marvel comics. Okay, I'm sorry, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as sprawling as it is, I kind of can't really complain because the Marvel universe, especially the X universe, has always been sprawling and always been interconnected. And so when I was like in middle school, high school, I was reading X-Men, X-Men Classic, The Uncanny X-Men, X-Force, The New Mutants, X Factor,
Generation X.
Generation X. I mean, there were so many of them, and they were all coming out at the same time, bi-weekly. It was ridiculous. But that is very indicative of exactly what they're doing now, like putting a lot of stuff out to get a lot of eyes on it, I guess, and it's working.
Part of that is the end result of, I mentioned, the speculator boom of the early 90s,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the 80s as comics started to take off in ways that they hadn't since, honestly, the early 30s and 40s, the golden age boom, which was kind of had a little more to do with the mob than it did other things. They decided like, oh well, we can put out fucking 20 X books a month. There was, when I was a kid, there was four different ongoing monthly Spider-Man titles. There was the Amazing Spider-Man, Peter Parker Spider-Man, the Sensational Spider-Man, and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and like just trying to keep up from what was going on at one moment to the other was very difficult. But with the Marvel stuff, they kind of decided, well, this works with comics, we can do it here too. And I guess it does, because I've watched most of the TV shows, and I
Yeah,
actually think the TV shows are better than the movies, but
I generally do too. Yeah,
that's partially at least because I tend to think TV shows in general are better than movies, especially
agreed.
now that we've reached the era that they will actually put movie level budget into TV shows thanks to streaming.
Yeah, prestige TV. Gotta love. That's my favorite.
I love and hate it, but The Hobbit should have been a TV show, and I will fight
Yeah,
for that for all time. But I don't know. Maybe it's because it only cost a few $1,000s to make each Spider-Man book that I find it somehow less offensive than we have dropped probably $1 billion on Marvel movies, like just the production of
oh
in the
sure,
past
sure.
5 years, definitely. I'm sure. Like who knows? I mean,
Just in advertising dollars alone.
oh my god, I don't even like thinking about it. And I'm torn because like on one hand, cool, a lot of interesting stuff is coming out and a lot of
Sure,
forgettable stuff too, but whatever.
but if it's your
Uh
genre, it's great.
yeah. I, I don't even know fully what my point is here. There is just something about the amount of saturation and how
Hmm.
it's bleeding into other stuff is either amazing or terrible depending on how much you care about the thing. There are 5 Star Trek series running right now. Because I'm me, this is the greatest fucking news you could have told 10-year-old me.
Sure.
But if you are someone like my mom, who liked Star Trek but wasn't wildly devoted to it, and mostly just had a crush on Michael Dorn, who played Worf, which
Hmm.
I have to mention anytime Star Trek comes up because she would be so mad if she found out I did. Um, there's no way in hell she's going to go looking at that stuff because, like, just which one do I start with? Does it matter? You know, there used to be a thing of we can't oversaturate the properties because we want these properties to maintain. You could only have 2 Star Trek shows at a time. You know, only one Star Wars thing was happening. Uh, there was a reason why all 4 Spider-Man books collapsed, and they just relaunched it as just Amazing Spider-Man. And as much as I love the plethora of stuff that I'm getting out of it, the millennial shithead in me is also aware that at least part of this is it's the byproduct of capitalism. And as much as I'm getting all the shit I dreamed about as a kid, I'm also giving Disney a lot more money than I want to.
I mean, oversaturation has lost me. It's lost one true Marvel fan, and the Star Wars saturation has. I was the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, and I do not care about the Bad Batch and the Mandalorian. I liked season 1 and season 2 was okay, and what I've seen so far is season 3, two thumbs down.
See, I'm the other
Star
way.
Wars
I
has
was pretty
lost
mad
me.
on season 2, but I thought season 3 has been pretty good so far. I will
That's
say
the general
Bad Batch.
consensus.
No, and that's fair. I will say Bad Batch kicks a lot of ass, but it is one of those.
I have no
It
interest in it.
Nope, and that's fine. I'm not even pushing you to watch it. I just the episode they put out I thought was super interesting, but there is also like here's an anti-fascist, anti-imperialist message that's coming out, but also this is Disney that's doing it, and I have very complicated feelings. I say while wearing a Star Trek T-shirt while recording this,
Oh
or
yes.
Star Wars T-shirt. Like it's all of the things that I love as a child is benefiting the oligarchy in ways that I am not comfortable with. And with Marvel, it's just so hard to ignore.
Yeah, that's why it's so torn in me that I should be loving this whole thing too, because I loved Marvel and Star Wars when I was a kid. But like I think that I really do think it's the oversaturation. I think that's the original point I was making a while back, is I haven't seen a lot of these movies just because they've lost me. I was going to go over some of these movies that I have seen, if that when we ever get to that point. If I may, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
can
go
I do
for
it
it
now,
now.
Yeah, you
Elizabeth?
want just go for it. Yeah.
We
Well,
just
the
got
ones
wildly off and on topic at the same time. So,
it's the same. We're talking
Yeah.
shit about Marvel and we haven't steered off topic yet, which is good. We just go in different directions. But of course, I saw X-Men when it first came out. Was blown away by it. Saw the
That one
first.
did not hold up at all, though, I will say. Like, it is,
I
if
haven't
you watch
seen it
it
since
now,
then.
they can't. There, I was watching a behind the scenes thing. I'm sorry, real fast,
Hmm.
because they were like, black leather's cool, because it was 2000, whatever fucking
It
year
was
the
so
pictures had
black
come out the
leather.
year
Yeah.
before. Literally, their costumes were so constricting because it was skin tight black leather that there was a fucking like 1 foot like ramp onto the garden plot of whatever Ellis Island. That's where they were, and
Right.
the actor they couldn't show the actors stepping up over it because the black leather was so tight. The actors couldn't step up like a foot.
Yep. I would say I owned these DVDs as they were coming out. I couldn't believe that these movies were being released. So I bought
Mm-hmm.
all these DVDs to watch all the commentaries and crap with X-Men, X-Men 2, The Incredible
X2 was pretty
Hulk.
good.
Yeah, I think I've seen that more recently. When I say more recently, in the past 15 or 20 years, and I remember
Yeah.
it being okay. Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man, is the only one that I've seen. Deadpool, which I had better expectations for it. Like for example, in that there was an X-Men movie, maybe it was X-Men 2 or X-Men 3, where like Deadpool makes a silent appearance. And so
Wolverine
Wolverine.
Origins, which
yeah, there
is
you go.
okay. If we're gonna talk shit about Marvel movies, I have one thing that anytime Wolverine Origins gets mentioned, I have to let go.
Yeah.
I am I am part of a motorcycle family. Like, I grew up. My dad put a seatbelt in the sidecar so he could fit my baby carrier in the sidecar. Like, this is my relationship to motorcycles. And there
Okay.
is a scene where he is riding motorcycle through
Hmm.
the forest while being chased by like an attack helicopter, yada yada yada,
I knew
and
that's where you were going.
it breaks my brain every fucking time. One, it is so clearly a dirt bike that they put like the overlay of a classic motorcycle, like a classic Harley on. But like, just having ridden street bikes on the street, I know how fucking like unwieldy they can be, and the idea of not only riding that bike like 60 miles an hour down a hill through the forest, dodging over stuff, but then having a fucking attack helicopter with like heavy duty machine gun bullets hitting it, and it's not even like shaking the bike. I almost walked out of the theater. I Of all the things to break me, that was the
Right.
one that I was like, this is some bullshit.
Yeah, this guy with this metal skeleton and these claws would never ride a motorcycle like this.
A motorcycle wouldn't work. Exactly. Yeah. Like,
We're bringing back the suspension of disbelief. It's the
Exactly.
word
it is the
or
thing I
code
have
word of the
seen
day.
about suspension of disbelief. It is always the most interesting things. Like, I will accept a
Yep.
man powered by the sun that shoots lasers out of his eyes that has punched a hole through time before. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But
Yeah.
like, I don't even have a Superman specific one, but like, oh, someone is playing basketball weird in the background, and it pulled me out of the entire fucking movie. Like,
Sure. Absolutely.
not important other than I just love making God. Wolverine Origins was a bad movie.
Well, I love Wolverine, and for that reason, I saw Logan. And Elizabeth shouted out Logan when we were on our text thread earlier. Asked
That's
me
one
if
of the
I've
ones that
seen
you and
that.
I watched together, Beth, because you and I have seen at least 3 or 4 of these movies together.
Yeah.
So it was. I mean, I loved. I can't say I loved Logan, but I thought it was pretty great. I think like that one and the Spider Verse are probably like my top two like Marvel related movies. Um,
Artistically, I think Logan is one of the more interesting ones, partially because they did something different with it. If you want me
right.
into a Marvel or into a superhero movie these days, it generally do something interesting. Spider Verse changed the way we look at animation. Guardians of the Galaxy made it a Star Wars movie. Fucking Captain America: First Avenger, one of the ones that I think holds up pretty well. They hired the guy who made The Rocketeer back in the early '90s and went, "Why don't you make another World War II movie, but with a fucking budget?" But do something fun with the movie, and it'll be much more interesting as opposed to the stupid kind of boilerplate stuff that leaves us with fucking Venom, which is another movie I went and saw with Beth. And
Okay.
admittedly, we had a good time because we were both high as a kite at the time. But it's a terrible movie.
But it has Tom Hardy, who I have
Tom
a
Hardy's
bigger
having a
crush
great
on.
time on that movie. Like, and it's
Yeah.
fun. but it is a movie that the more I thought about it, the more angry I got over time. Like,
All these movies that I've named that I've seen so far, I liked okay. I even liked The Incredible Hulk, the one that you were saying was like so terrible back in the day, and it was terrible. But when I saw it at the time, there wasn't much to compare it to in superhero land.
oh yeah,
So
when I was
it
15,
was
I thought the
acceptable.
Ben Affleck Daredevil was fun.
Yeah,
It's not, but I thought it was.
as a 28-year-old, I thought the Ben Affleck Daredevil was a fun movie too. I liked it.
Who
Um,
was that played Kingpin? I do want to, because I have to say nice things about things sometimes. Michael Clark Duncan was an amazing Kingpin. Everything else in that movie was terrible, but I liked him.
I'd forgotten about the performance 100%. When you asked me who played Kingpin, I completely blanked out. I was like, no clue. But those are all the pre MCU movies I've seen. As we started getting to the MCU, I like these movies less and less. Like Iron Man, I did like Iron Man. I got to admit that I liked Iron Man, and I think that was the one that also had Whiplash as
Iron Man
the
2 had Whiplash.
okay. Well, I saw Iron Man 2 as well. And I liked that okay, mostly because of that character of Whiplash. I thought he was neat. Um, but as the movie itself, I didn't like it a whole lot. This is when I started.
That one is not remembered fondly, so you're not alone on that one. If it helps, at least. Like,
I think I may have saw it like at a just the right moment in time where I was just starting to get tired of these types of movies.
mhm.
Because from here we're moving into I've seen Captain America: First Avenger, did not like it, did not enjoy it. Guardians of the Galaxy, did not like it, did not enjoy it. Uh,
I'm very confused by you in that one, but more power to you.
Yeah, I love Guardians. The
I
second one more. I like the second one more.
like I said, I was
First one's a
so
better movie. The second one has a better payoff if you've watched the first movie. Sorry, I'm interrupted you, Steve. Go
no,
ahead.
that's okay. That's all right. I guess I was just so keenly aware of the formula by this point, and I was starting to get biased against these movies, and I'd heard good things about this, and I was familiar with the property. I was familiar mostly with the raccoon character. That's the one that I mostly remember from back in the 80s or whatever. But
A
it just
giant Beatles joke that made it good.
what's this? Oh, the Rocky
Rocket
Raccoon.
Raccoon is based off of is at least loosely based off Rocky Raccoon. It was Keith
Sure.
Giffen needing to kill some time, telling a fucking acid head of a story. Um,
But I don't know. I guess I can't really explain why I didn't like it. I like Chris Pratt, and I did not like Chris Pratt in that role. And I think that was like a big thing that like turned me off of it because I was a big Andy Dwyer fan, being a big fan of like Parks and Rec. So
mhm.
seeing the new superhero Chris Pratt, it just kind of it didn't do it for me. And then like the you were talking about how you love the music in it, and I did too. Of course, that's exactly my era. It rubbed me the wrong way. I kind of saw it as they're taking these songs and they're now affiliating these songs with these images I'm seeing now, and so these kids in this theater are now going to think of this song and they're going to think of this movie, and that really bums me out.
You know,
But that's just because of me. That's my own personal hang up.
and that's fair. I get it. It's not the same thing, but it's interesting to me the number of people who like. I'm not going to use a good song as a example here, but it's the one I first think of because it's
Okay.
the first album I ever bought was Smash Mouth's Astro Lounge. It's the
All
one that had All
right.
Star on
Heck
it. And I'm not
yeah.
saying it was a good album. I'm saying I loved the shit out of it when I was 7.
Okay. Yes.
Um, and I remember the year it came out and going to the pool and listening to it. So I have like very specific memories of it. And when Smash Mouth came out, when All Star was played so heavily in Shrek, I remember being like, I liked this before it was cool. I liked
Right.
this before it was Shrek, which is the God. I was just built to be a millennial hipster, but so like I'm kind of making fun of you, but I kind of understand at the same time what you're saying here,
Sure.
bud.
Oh, I should be made fun of. Absolutely. That's not a good opinion to have. And I realize that. I was saying lots of bad opinions on the sports episode. You should hear that.
I
Um,
I have, but it's been a while.
Black Panther. I tried watching Black Panther. It did nothing for me. And I'm sorry. I'm a Chadwick Boseman fan. I'm a fan of all those people in those movies. And I just,
Michael B. Jordan. Also
Yeah,
have a crush on Michael B. Jordan.
why not? I mean, he's great. Um,
Yeah, he was
There
the
it
not in
is.
best part
Black
of that
Panther.
movie, in my opinion.
Like I said, just my suspension of disbelief is just so like is either too high or too low to like look past it. And Doctor Strange is one. I think maybe is the last. That was either the last one I saw or Black Panther was the last one that I saw, like in the order that they were coming out.
I
Which
thought the first Doctor Strange was forgettably enjoyable, but like if you
that's
are
how I
going to be a
remember it
little more
too.
if you're going to be a little more discerning, then yeah, that's probably not one that's going to be hold up well for you. I really liked the Black Panther ones. I enjoyed, as I said, the first two of the three Captain America ones. I love Thor Ragnarok, but I think that's because I
I
like
never
Taika
saw any of
Waititi.
those.
Well, and if you didn't like Captain America: First Avenger, it makes sense that you weren't going to go see the second one. Like
Sure,
that's
sure.
very different movie, but it make like I see where you were coming from. Um,
What was it
it's
about Black
interest.
Panther though, y'all? I want you to go back to Black Panther. Did y'all everybody seems to love it. And what am I missing? Maybe y'all can tell me. Or maybe y'all aren't the ones to tell me. I don't know.
I don't know. Like I remember. Okay, so it's been a couple years since I've watched it, so I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I remember finding it visually very interesting. I love the way they stylized Wakanda. I think it's the first Chadwick Boseman movie I saw, so that definitely probably had an effect. I think no, I watched that absolutely terrible Gods of Egypt movie, but even he didn't like that one, so like I'm not
I'm
gonna
not familiar.
don't.
I was
He
familiar
said
with
that
it.
he signed on to the movie because there needed to be at least one person of color in a movie about Egypt. Um,
I want to look up Chadwick Boseman now because I remember him from a TV show, and that's what kind of like made me want to watch Black Panther because I liked him, and then of course I liked the Black Panther comics as a kid too. Um,
See, and what's interesting is I don't, with the exception of the Jack Kirby run from the 70s, which is mostly just a fucking acid trip of a series, I'm not, I've never been a huge, like, devoted Black Panther comic book fan. There are
okay,
runs that I like, but, like, it's not one, oh, there's a new Black Panther series. I'm absolutely going to pick it up.
what's the best MCU movies in y'all's opinion?
Oh,
You
hold on.
first,
I want
Elizabeth.
to. So, my favorite parts of Black Panther is the
Okay, yeah,
soundtrack.
yeah,
The soundtrack
Soundtrack's very good.
is
yeah. The soundtrack
so
rips.
good.
I got the CD. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, when I was DJing when it came out and I would play those songs all the time. I was like, I don't care if they're mainstream because we were in a college radio station, so you have to be like hipster. And I was like, I don't give a fuck. This song slaps. Um,
I didn't know it was mainstream. I thought it was awesome.
I think, well, yeah, I really liked Killmonger. I think he was like the coolest villain, or the most, not coolest, but the most interesting and the most, I'm not going to say relatable because I'm not, oh, my dog's wrapped up in a cord. Oh, shit.
Uh-oh.
That's very on brand for both of her dogs. I've met them both.
My
All
dog
right.
does that too. I have a cord down here that he always gets wrapped up in.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Chaos. I was like, what the fuck is she doing back there? I think I just think he's a really interesting character with an interesting perspective. And I think one of the reasons why Black Panther was so popular, and rightfully so, is that because it was a story created by and all the visuals by, like, in terms of costumes and everything, like for Black people and by Black people. And
It definitely brought in parts of the conversation in ways that it hadn't before in the mainstream.
yeah. Yeah. So I think that was like a huge thing because I mean it was also is I mean, I guess there's Blade would be was that how many Black superheroes do we have in
Yeah,
films,
that's true.
right?
Yeah. And yeah, Blade, we were talking about Blade earlier, and that basically was a Wesley Snipes vehicle because he was like on fire at the time. Like people wanted him in everything. And so that was
And
like a movie to give him to roll with it.
Black Panther was pretty faithful to the comic book format, while Blade completely reinvented the character of Blade both in and out of the comic books because he had been a completely un-Wesley Snipes character before that movie came out. Like unrecognizable.
Yeah, going over this list, I was kind of like, which are my favorites? And I'm like, the more I
Yeah.
think about them, the more I'm like more feeling more meh about them, but definitely
You got to pick one.
definitely Guardians of the Galaxy. Not because of Chris Pratt. I'm tired of Chris Pratt. He's just the same guy in every movie. And
Agreed.
It helped that this was before this was kind of the movie that set him up as what he was going to be for the next 18 fucking movies. So
yeah,
it felt a lot more fresh when I watched it then.
It sucks because he's
yeah,
so charming. He's such a charming guy too, and I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. Oh, you're fine. Um, and Thor Ragnarok because it's Taika Waititi.
I
And
really liked Thor Ragnarok, and I really didn't like the previous two Thor movies, so that was a nice thing. One
yeah.
thing,
Oh, go ahead.
no, it's one thing I think that's interesting of the ones that, pardon me, as I burp now, as that I think that people tend to list as the better ones, whether you like them or not is up to you, and I'm not going to argue anyone. Um, is the ones that are respectful to the comic books that they're based off of, but not utterly beholden to them. The Guardians used the characters in ways that, other than Chris Pratt was playing Chris Pratt and not Star Lord, was made sense to the Guardians stories that had come out before, but it wasn't utterly devoted to it. Thor Ragnarok had the stylization of the Walt Simonson Thor run in a way that very few other things had done, but it was Taika Waititi's fun and sense of humor as opposed to the like weird dour Shakespearean bullshit that they've been trying to do with the previous ones.
No, I've
I
heard.
also just like bright colors, and Thor Ragnarok and Guardians and Black Panther are all extremely colorful movies.
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok. Okay, I've heard a lot of good things about Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther and Thor Ragnarok. That's another one that I've
People
heard
love it
nothing.
or hate Thor Ragnarok. There's like not a lot of in between from what I've
That's what
seen
I
of
was wondering
those.
if is that a movie that I could maybe check out and see
I
what
don't know, man. I would have said yes, but you don't like all the ones I've liked so far, so it's hard for me to be a good judge for you.
I like the Spider-Verse. I thought that one was badass.
Spider Verse is fucking sweet. That is,
Yeah.
I mean, I might watch Spider Verse after I've already said Mando, but like we mentioned Spider Verse, and well, there's my brain.
I'm kind of in the opposing, I was going to say field, but I don't think that's the right
Camp?
phrase. We're having a hard
Camp?
time with
Yeah, camp.
phrases, camp,
Phrases.
in the wrong camp. I was eating corn nuts earlier because I was frantically trying to get calories in so my brain will function. um, but I do love the quips. I don't know. I love a quick one liner and the classic rock music or just like unexpected songs because I get what you're saying, but I remember playing Tony Hawk Underground 2 on a GameCube and putting
God,
on
that
the
game
punk
kicked ass.
playlist and hearing this band Faith No More and being like, who is this song fucking slaps. Midlife Crisis, like hell yeah, I'm you know
I'm 14. I'm having a
13,
midlife
I'm
crisis.
yeah and so I went and looked them up and was like so excited. And I found all these other bands like Rancid and all these things, and probably less so. Well, yeah, and if you go to like a fan who's like an OG fan or whatever, they might be like, "Oh man, fucking, you're putting Faith No More on, Tony Hawk," or like, "Oh man, I can't believe they're like Rancid sold out. They're on Tony Hawk." But it's like that's how I got exposed to that music, and that's how I was able to like connect with it and love it. So
My
that's my counter
dad has
argument.
my dad has talked about this of and he's not a huge Alice Cooper fan, but he remembers seeing Alice Cooper live because he was working at a theater in the 70s, which admittedly was because he was, oh, someone named Alice Cooper, I wonder if she's hot, and then fucking Alice Cooper walks out. But like, so his experience with a lot of those bands of that era is stuff like that. Working
Mhm.
in a theater in Minneapolis, it is about the most quote unquote legitimate way you can discover a lot of these bands, but that doesn't mean the people who discovered Alice Cooper through fucking Wayne's World are any less legitimate, or Rolling Stones through fucking whoever. Or I mean, my earliest memories of the Beatles is probably Beatles' Yellow Submarine, while there are plenty of Beatles fans who would have listed that movie as them selling out. So I do get the like, this is my music, you can't commercialize it like this, but also a lot of people now know fucking, from Guardians that I can't even remember who does it. That song Cherry Bomb, which is a banger.
Yeah, that it's
Hello,
very it's
daddy. Hello, mom. Sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah. That's it's complex because, I discovered music my own way. I don't fault anybody for it. I'm just saying, like, at that moment, I remember it, Guardians of the Galaxy, and hearing those great songs, and like thinking like these little kids are going to remember this tree named Groot, like, and associate that with these songs, and that's just terrible. But at the same, but yes, you're absolutely right. Like, these games and this pop culture does introduce kids, and I was a scout leader for my son, and all the kids in the scout troop. It was just crazy how, like, all these kids in the 2000s were all into 70s rock and roll. They were all into like Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, and that was like their thing. They didn't care about anything that was current, and they discovered it their own way, and they have their own memories of it. And I can't, there's it's great to be exposed to great music. Obviously, I'm a musician, so I want everybody to be exposed to good music. I just felt very bad that it had to be done in such a weird way. um Almost the
Well,
same
I
way
think
where, like,
it's
the Immigrant Song is now forever associated with Jack Black. A great movie, School of Rock. It's fantastic, but I can't hear that song without seeing Jack Black's face in my mind.
I mean, I think that's part of the much deeper ongoing argument of like quote unquote selling out. Like, and what
Yeah.
qualifies as selling out, and is it actually a bad thing, or like uh is selling out sacrificing your artistic integrity, or is it getting you a wider audience, or is it, making sure that you can afford to do whatever the fuck you want? And there's probably no real answer to that.
I think there is. I
Since
don't
we're
think selling. I think the term doesn't exist. I think.
Yeah, no, there's that. Because we're apparently talking about movie music instead of the MCU now. My
Oh
dad
yeah, oh
used to
yeah.
talk about "Time of Your Life" by Green Day. Like, Green Day did all of that punk stuff, and then they put out Time of Your Life," which is I mean, I like it, but it's a
I like it too.
weird,
It's a departure.
not quite
Yeah.
romantic ballad. And apparently, the view in the radio stations he was working at the time was, oh god, it sold out. But his response was, well, because of they put out this song that's now a number one hit, they can do whatever the fuck they want for the rest of their lives.
It's not selling out. It's just making money doing a job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I fully endorse that. So yeah, I'm sorry I came across as a negative Nelly.
We're on the talking
No, we're
shit
here to
about
talk
podcast.
shit.
Like,
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm talking shit about
Yeah.
Marvel.
Yeah.
Uh, I do think. I mean, it kind of goes across with what you were saying about the quips. I'm with Beth. I generally enjoy the quips. The fact that every single character has a bunch of quips does get tiring after a while. There is the danger of homogenizing the characters. The Drax the Destroyer I was a fan of as a child no longer exists because Dave Bautista's Drax. Now, I
Okay.
really like Dave Bautista's Drax, so that's kind of okay. But also, I do occasionally miss the weird bright purple costume with the like strange skull motifs and the one-minded but not in a funny way kind of character. Iron Man is always has to be like the snarkiest, funniest guy now because of Robert Downey Jr. And I get it because Robert Downey Jr. did a great job at it, but also shut the fuck up. You're a tech billionaire. I don't have a lot of time for you anymore. And kind of, kind of, I'm realizing as I'm saying this out loud, I hold grudges against the Iron Man movies. That's not the Iron Man movies' fault, but every tech bro douchebag ever since has decided that they're going to be Tony Stark. And yes, I am directly
That's
talking
true.
about Elon Musk as a direct result of that movie.
I know guys that make like Iron Man like their identity, and it's weird. They're my age and older
Uh
with, like,
huh.
that
And
tattoo.
it's like, and I get that, and that's strange, but I mean literally like billionaires being like, see, billionaires aren't bad. I'm like Tony Stark. And I'm like, no, shut the fuck up and like help us have healthcare, you assholes. Like,
See, Elon Musk
um,
is cool. He's a superhero.
I was listening to some other podcasts and they said something nice about Elon Musk, and I had to like look up the
Oh,
date it came out. And it came, and in fairness, the episode came out like 5, 6 years ago when
that's very
we thought
important.
he was like The
Yeah.
guy that was going to bring not guitars, electric cars to the wider world and was
Right.
launching shit into space while playing David Bowie's Rocket Man, and we were like, hell yeah! And then he kept talking, and we went, oh no.
Yeah. Somebody take his money away, please.
But I
We
mean, Tony Stark, these Marvel movies have directly benefited Elon Musk or the Batman movies too,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
here's
Indirectly.
here's an example of billionaires are good guys, and then they get an idea of like how to present themselves based off those movies. Is that the movie's fault? No. Is it a byproduct that irritates the shit out of me? Absolutely.
How about the Punisher? Same thing. Like the Punisher has been adopted as like, like a
My
did a
first episode was talking shit about the Punisher. I had issues with the Punisher
okay.
long before that, but yes,
Yeah,
100%
right.
yes. He was adopted by white supremacists.
Yeah.
We can't save that anymore. Like,
It's
it's just
gone. Bye
gone. It's
bye.
over.
Yep.
And I say this as someone who had the fucking Punisher spray painted on style t shirt that they sold in that fucking terrible Thomas Jane movie that came out when I was in high school. I tried so hard to like the Punisher.
I've had Punisher t-shirts in the past. I have.
Yes, that that fucking Ross Andrew designed skull from is amazing. It's just,
It's
that
gone.
battle is lost.
Yep.
There is a fucking car that I see a lot when I'm driving home because I work in rural Montana and I live in super rural Montana.
Okay.
I don't know where you're from, Steve, but so like I have to deal with some of the worst sometimes, and there is a fucking car I have to pass that has a bumper sticker with the Trump skull with fucking Donald Trump's hairpiece
Mm-hmm.
on it.
Yeah.
That I just know this fucker is wearing, like, put on his car unironically. Not that you could even ironically justify it, but so like, when they announced, I think they announced recently, a rumor is that fucking what's his name, who played the Punisher most recently, John Bernthal, is going to be coming back in Daredevil as the Punisher, and I'm like, well, fuck. Like, fuck, man. Like, look at the wider room. I get it. He did a good job in the thing that I saw, but that was before fucking people tried to overthrow the Capitol while wearing Punisher on their fucking flak jackets. Like,
And Punisher is DC. He is a DC property,
Marvel.
correct?
He's Marvel.
I mean, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I meant to say Marvel. We're here
Yep.
talking shit
He
about
first
Marvel.
appeared in Amazing Spider-Man by Gary Conway and I think Ross Andrew, and I said that in a place that's recorded without looking that up. So that was risky.
Risky. Well, here's a risky question then. If he is part of is he part of the MCU? Was he like one of the guys in like that Avenger, like half of us are dead and half of us aren't?
Oh
Was
yeah, it does.
Punisher there?
That list didn't include like all the Netflix shows.
Well, that list that you read off didn't include any of the TV shows, and
Right.
where the Netflix shows exist right now is desperately unclear. It
It's
kind
so
of,
weird.
they were originally supposed to be, but that was right around the same time that Marvel started actively, because they went, oh my God, we are suddenly the biggest franchise in the world. Whoever the fuck thought that would happen? We made Iron Man on a shoestring budget. We need to start getting all of our properties back. So what at first was like, oh, we've shopped this out to ABC and we've shopped this out to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Netflix and yada yada yada. Suddenly they're desperately trying to get everything back, and anything that's not directly made by them is not. So like the Netflix series referenced the first Avengers movies a couple of times, but it never went the other way around. And
Hmm.
now that just seems to be not really part of it, which was very confusing because they brought Charlie Cox back as Daredevil because he's fucking great as Daredevil. That show was nothing but peaks and valleys of quality, but he was very good as Daredevil. Um, but now they're like, well, he's back, but maybe it's a different version of Daredevil. We're going to try not to talk about it too much when anyone asks questions during interviews.
So was Daredevil and Punisher, were they part of the whole like end game thing then?
No, they were never mentioned.
Okay, so they just, yeah. There's like your friends you don't talk to anymore, basically.
Well, That's how I feel about the Punisher always. But we did a whole episode on that. I don't need to dive back in.
Well, what you were saying before reminded me something about Star Wars. To get off key real quick, is our planet Earth. Um, I've come to realize is actually canon in the Star Wars universe because in episode 1 they showed all those ETs like in the Senate. So ETs exist in the Star Wars universe, and an ET came here to Earth and made friends with an Earthling named Elliot. So absolutely, we are part of the Star Wars universe.
Okay, so part of that is we need to stop being so fucking obsessed with canon, which Marvel is at least
Oh, Star Wars
30%
is a big
responsible
problem
for.
with canon. Yeah.
Yes, ducks also exist on the planet Naboo, apparently, because they have the line, "We're sitting ducks here." Like, it's
I love it.
canon is such a weird thing, and it's something that I was obsessed with for a long time because I loved weird shit like that. Like, oh, look, you can find ET, so technically this exists. Or
Right.
I have a Star Wars comic that tied together Indiana Jones and Star Wars by implying that Han Solo crashed and died on Earth, and Chewbacca is now
Sasquatch.
Sasquatch, yeah. And
Right.
there's like Indiana Jones is hunting down the Sasquatch and he gets a
Yes,
hint of
exactly.
Chewbacca. And it was a fun little comic book,
It
but
is
like people
fun.
got
Yeah.
fucking weird about it
Yeah,
because like
not
what does
me.
that say about canon? Shut up, man, and enjoy the fun 10-page little like thing.
Exactly.
So
Is the Star Wars holiday special canon?
parts of
Yeah.
it are.
Yeah,
Life Day
absolutely.
was mentioned in The Mandalorian. Fucking Life Day. Boba Fett appeared in Star Wars first.
Yeah.
You and I watched that together. It is a fucking
Yeah,
what
we
was I
watched it
found
on air at the radio station. You remember that?
yes, it was very well. I remember people talking about logging in, being like, turning on the radio station, not knowing we were doing that, being like, "Is that Zach? What the fuck is he talking about?" Um,
I was one of the guys who got it a VHS bootleg copy of it. So heck yeah.
we
Watching it
watched
way
it
back
on
when.
we watched it on YouTube. I later did a podcast live stream of it because that was so fun. They find ways to mention it, but that was the movie that was reviewed as it's like a sentient bag of cocaine wrote a script.
Yeah,
Um,
it was no good. It was no what were they thinking? That was that was a weird day for them.
money. They were thinking money.
Yeah, yeah. Christmas special, buddy.
And now Disney owns Star Wars as
Oh,
well.
hallelujah.
It all comes
Hallelujah.
together. It's all coming together. Thanks, Disney.
Oh, that's
Lord.
right. Now we can have a maybe Star Wars can be part of the MCU. The next Marvel Endgame, we'll have a Boba Fett running around there somewhere. Who knows?
This
E.T.
falls back to what I was yelling about with capitalism. Do I enjoy a majority of the stuff that has come out from Star Wars, from Disney? Yes. Am I so like anyone who was like it's not real Star Wars? I'm like shut the fuck up. But am I mad that I'm giving Disney money as much as I am? Absolutely. But I was mad about that with fucking the third copy of the Jungle Book I bought from like VHS to DVD to I don't even fucking know anymore.
Even me, even I'm giving Disney money regularly because I subscribe to that stupid channel. So like they're getting my like $9 every month, just like everybody else. So even the jaded people that they lost long ago, not just Marvel, but Disney, has lost me a long time ago as well. I'm still giving them money. So gladly giving it to them so we can watch some TV.
Um, it's not Marvelous DC. But, Elizabeth, you would probably like the Harley Quinn TV show if you haven't seen it.
I have not seen it. I should. I Harley Quinn was like Harley Quinn and Deadpool were my favorite comic book characters. And when Deadpool came out, I was pretty excited. I enjoyed it.
I never
I
saw
was
the
like
second one, but I liked the first one.
I saw the second one too. I liked that one too. Yeah. I was like, cool. I don't know. I was satisfied, but I also like wasn't an avid comic book reader. I just had like a handful of issues and some posters
Mm-hmm.
and same with Harley Quinn. And I did not see what movie with Suicide Squad. Never watched it. Never
First
never
Suicide
wanted
Squad
to watch
is
it.
First Suicide Squad is absolute garbage movie. Just don't.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
desire either.
Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey or whatever. It was originally Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, and then they changed it because it's basically a Harley Quinn movie. Is actually pretty decent. I mean, it's fun, And
Hmm.
the Suicide Squad, the second one that's made by James Gunn, is fucking fantastic, to be honest
Oh,
with you.
James
But
Gunn. He did
like,
Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
yep. And then he
Yep.
did the Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker TV show, which both of which I will swear by. But Steve might be annoyed because they use a bunch of 80s power metal, so it might be his
I love 80s power
appropriating
metal.
his.
Just that one experience of the Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't mean that I hate music placement. I
Yeah, I
did.
know, but it just gave us an opportunity to tease you for the rest of this episode, so we can't avoid it. Like, it's
I've heard
just.
good things about the Peacemaker too. Is that a Marvel thing or is that
No, it's
that's
a
a
DC thing.
okay? All
Um,
right.
and DC is wildly unreliable unless James Gunn is making it so far. So,
I'm just wondering what I could maybe watch that might change my mind. I don't know. Because
Thor
out of
Ragnarok.
everything,
It's worth a shot.
Thor Ragnarok.
if he
Yeah.
Okay.
doesn't like Guardians, I don't think he's going to like Thor Ragnarok personally, but I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, watch The Suicide Squad and watch Peacemaker. They're DC, but whatever. And make sure it's The Suicide Squad, not
Right.
Suicide Squad.
Right.
The one
Is
that came out during the pandemic.
the Suicide Squad the second one? Did Pete Davidson make it into that one, or did he not in it? Because I thought
Dies in
he.
the first scene.
What's that?
Dies in the first scene.
Okay. Well, spoiler alert, but okay.
It's the Suicide Squad. Their whole thing is they have bombs in their head.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, so he. So
Oh,
I just.
spoiler!
I knew the general concept. Yes. Um. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking is like for some reason my head's going to Pete Davidson, and I remember that was a big thing if that was a rumor or not that he was in that movie, and I guess it's
he
answered.
he was in it. I will say that movie. Risk of spoiler, I guess, for a movie that came out a couple of years ago. That movie has a huge cast and it has a giant kill list, which is probably what you should do if you're doing a movie about let's put D-list supervillains out in the field with bombs in their heads so they can save the world.
Right on. Well, I did write those three down, so I might be checking them out. Who knows? I will report back if I do
Yes.
watch any of these
Yeah.
and what I think of them too, of course.
Yes,
Because
let me
yeah,
know.
sometimes like I'll start something and then I just don't have the heart to finish it. You know what I mean? Like I already know that like I'm not enjoying this. I don't know if it'll turn me. I don't know. Do I need to get over that? Do I need to like make it to the second act at least? Because
I
I
mean,
don't.
that's really up to you. Like, if you don't care about these movies, then you don't care about these movies. There ain't nothing wrong with that. I
It's just
like them more than I don't, but like that's
I feel like I
ain't nothing
should,
wrong
and
with that either. Like it's
I feel like I'm being prejudiced about it or something. I feel like I should like them just because I like. uh, I talk about the guy who like bases personality on the Punish or not on the Punisher on whatever people base their personalities on Iron Man. That's it, superhero characters. And yeah, I absolutely adored Wolverine when I was a teenager, and I thought I was Wolverine. He was everything that I wanted to be. So I have like this adoration for some of these characters. So why do I hate them so much now? Why do I cannot stand the sight of Wolverine claws? I just, you know what I mean? It
well,
kind of
okay. I mean,
baffles me.
in that case, there's. I would recommend going back to the stuff that you liked. If you liked Wolverine as a kid, go read the original Chris Claremont, Frank Miller Wolverine miniseries. That series kicks ass. Like, j- um,
Well, I'm talking
just
about movies
because.
specifically because I still have all my comics.
Oh, fair enough. If you liked Blade, go watch Blade instead of worrying about the new fucking whatever. Uh, there are a few things that I think I've wasted my time on more than trying to like a series because I think I should like it, as
Right,
opposed
right.
to I actually do enjoy it. And by this, I'm kind of directly referencing the time I spent trying to like Game of Thrones,
Okay. All
or
right.
The Walking Dead,
Right.
or
Hell
you
yeah.
know, and that doesn't mean that they're bad or without value. That just meant they weren't for me.
Sure. Agreed. I mean, Game of Thrones, I don't agree because I loved it except for that stupid ending. But
Oh, the ending. Fuck me.
Walking Dead lost me like way early, and I just had no interest in it anymore. And
When
no
I
interest in
realized the whole
zombies
reason I
anymore.
was watching Game of Thrones was to watch a kid fucking die, I realized I was like, oh, I just don't feel good about myself.
Yeah,
Like, but
it's
that's
like
again, that's me. I understand why people liked it. I somehow kind of kept up with it, even though I wasn't watching it anymore, just so I knew what people were talking about. But like, there is so much media in the world. I mean, we're just talking about MCU movies, and there's fucking 20 something of them, and that's only counting the ones that count as the excuse me, only counting the ones that count as the MCU. Instead of worrying about like, should I like these? Maybe you don't. Maybe they're not for you. That's fucking fine. Um, the only thing I would say is, despite the fact that we're on the talking shit about podcast, in the real world, if you encounter someone that does like the MCU or the DC movies or fucking something non-comic book related, my brain is turning into mush. Uh, Game of Thrones. Just don't be a dickhead about it if someone else does like it. Like, that's really, at the end of the
That's
day,
good
the whole
advice.
lesson of it. Like,
Absolutely good advice. And I try not to be. Absolutely.
oh,
Because
I am not
Oh, no,
accusing
you're
you
not
by any
being.
means. Like,
oh no, I'm saying like in life in
Oh,
general
yeah.
when I'm out because I'm around a lot of people who I disagree with. You asked me where I was from earlier, and I live in Richmond, Virginia, which is like a metropolis, but then I work in rural Virginia, just like you were saying. So I'm with all types of people, and they bring up all kinds of stuff I don't agree with. And you focus on what you do agree with, as opposed to like bring up something that you hate. Oh, I hate that. Instead, just yeah, like you're saying you'll find
mhm.
something to agree on eventually. And yeah, I mean, you're right. These movies are not for me, but I kind of want to give them a shot, especially when I hear about like, performances that people give. That's why I wanted to check out Black Panther. I wanted to see this great performance and I missed it, I guess. So but I want to catch it,
Well, in that case, I'd recommend either like looking up characters you specifically like, or looking up actors you specifically like. I know
yeah, there you
a
go.
conversation that happening in superhero comics for a while there was now this was admittedly creators making this argument, so they were a little biased. Stop following characters you like, start following creators you like, because
Right.
Green Lantern might have been great when Ron Mars was doing it, but when Gerard Jones was writing it, it was significantly shittier. And but people are following it even after Mars left because they liked it. Uh, and then Mars's next book, I'm getting way deep in the weeds here, but like creator's next book, no one read because unknown character. So if you like Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. or whatever, maybe check out some of the ones that he was in.
That's solid advice. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it, guys. I think my dog's about her shit her pants, so I'm
She
gonna take her
sounds like she's
outside.
about to explode. Yes,
Your dog's wearing
Yes.
pants?
No, sometimes they wear sweaters though. I have
they are
matching
very
sweaters.
adorable in the sweaters.
That sounds
Yes, we
adorable.
have matching sweaters, like me and one of my dogs, and then my fiance and the other dog. It's ridiculous. Guys, thank you so much for being open to do this. And it was like
Always.
super last minute that I was like, hey, can I bring Zach in? And you were just like, yeah, sure. And I'm
I'm
glad.
glad you did. I mean, it made for a healthy conversation. We're looking at what, an hour 48 here. So we rocked it.
Yeah. That's a wrap for this month's episode of Talking Shit About. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Thumbs and Steve, for coming on and carrying most of the conversation. It was a really nice break from doing all of that research and most of the talking, and it feels so good to be back to interviews. If you would like to come on the show, you can email me at killizabeth.pod@gmail.com. That's KILLIZABETH.pod@gmail.com. Maybe you want to talk about a serious mental illness. Maybe you want to talk about a sport that you hate. Maybe there's some other thing that I can't think of that you really want to talk about. Please reach out. Even if you don't want to be a guest, but you have some ideas on what you'd like to hear, send those my way too. I would love to try to find a guest to fit that topic. And I think that's it, guys. We'll see you next month.